Okay, now that we've got all of our error handling set up on the API, what we're going to do is just prepare ourselves for testing and configuring this on the client side. And what we're going to do is just create some components and a controller in our API to test our error handling as it is right now. So just to help us out with this, I've got some snippets that we're going to make use of just inside the snippets folder in the student assets. We've got our error snippets. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new controller called buggy controller. And it's just got some methods in here to test our API responses on the client side, just to keep things really simple. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this into my clipboard. And we'll go to our API controllers folder. We'll create a new C# class and we'll just call this buggy controller and press return. And inside here, we're just going to overwrite with what's contained inside our snippets, which is not very much. It's just a bunch of endpoints that's going to get a not found request, return a bad request, return an exception, and return unauthorized. Really simple, and will just allow us to test these things on our client side. Now, sometimes when we add a new controller, it's necessary to restart the API. So I'm just going to do this just to make sure that there's no problems, and say .NET watch run once again. And this way our API picks up that we've added a new controller, as we'll see 404 not found responses for all of these different endpoints if we don't do that sometimes. And what we'll also do is inside our client app, inside our source folder, inside features, we'll just create a new folder and we'll call it errors. And we'll just create a new file and we'll call it testerror.tsx and press return. And inside this one, we'll go back to our snippets and we'll just copy all of the code for the test error component into our clipboard and we'll just paste it all inside here. Now, what's going on inside here is we're just configuring a base URL to go and hit our API. And then we've got a bunch of different functions that are going to go to the endpoints that we created in the buggy controller. So we've got the not found, the bad request, the server error, and unauthorized. And we're just logging out the error response for each of these. We've got a couple of additional functions here to handle a couple of different use cases where we go and try and get an activity that's not a GUID and also get a validation error by sending up an empty object to post to our activities URL. And then inside here, we've got a bunch of buttons that we can simply click on and it's going to hit those different endpoints. And what we'll also do is we'll create a route and a nav link so that we can easily get to this component. So we'll open up the app.tsx and inside here, just underneath the activity form, we'll create a new route and we'll give it a path equal to /errors and we'll set the components equal to the test error component that we just created, or test errors in this case. And then we'll go to our nav bar and we'll create a new link just underneath our activities here. And we'll specify errors as the root and the name will just say errors. And if we go and browse and test this and click on errors, then we can see our buttons to do various things. And if we open up our console, what we should find is that if we click on these different errors, for example, we click on not found, we get the error response, which is a 404 and not found. And if we click on bad request, we get the 400 bad request. The validation error is giving us a bad request, and let's just double check what we're displaying in the response there because that's slightly different. And we'll say error response for this one and go back and just refresh the page and test this one. And if we click on validation error, then inside this response, inside the data, what we have is the errors, and then each one of these errors is listed out inside the data errors object here. And if we keep going and we click on server error, we get the 500 internal server error. And once again, if we click on data inside here we can see our response that we generate from our API. And if we click on unauthorized, we should see a 401. And if we click on bad GUID, then we should see a 400 bad request. But once again, inside data, inside errors, we actually get a validation error for this one. And it says the value not a GUID is not valid. So what we want to do is handle these different types of error responses appropriately, and we'll come on to that. But one of the things that we're also going to add into our application is a toaster package, so that for certain errors we can display a toast in the bottom right hand side here to say there's been a problem. So what we'll do is we'll go back to VS Code and we'll open up our terminal, and let's go to the third tab and just cd into the client app here. And what we'll do is we'll install a toaster package, and the one that we want is called React Toastify. So we'll say npm install and react-toastify and press return. This one does come with a TypeScript definition file, so it's pretty easy to use. And we've still got a bunch of warnings here, but quite safe to ignore these. And the version of this is 6.2.0. And what we'll do is we'll go to our app.tsx once again, and we need to add a container for this. And we'll add it to the top of our application effectively, because our toasts are going to be able to be displayed from anywhere in our app. So what we'll do is we'll add toast container, which we get from React Toastify. And then we'll specify the position we want this toast to be displayed in, and I'm going to say bottom right. And I'm also going to turn off the progress bar as well. Plenty of different options, but these will suffice for what we're doing right now. What we also need to do is go to our index.tsx, and we need to add some styles for the Toastify. So what we'll do is below our calendar here, we'll say import, and then we'll say React Toastify, and then we'll go to the dist folder, and then we'll specify React Toastify.min.css. Be careful with spelling here. Obviously, if you make a typo, then your toasts are not going to be displayed as you would expect. But this is the preparation I just wanted to do before we started configuring our error handling on the client side. And what we'll do next is take advantage of using an Axios interceptor so that we can check the response and respond accordingly.